Okay, well, welcome everybody. We're here to talk about nutritional healing. If you didn't know my name before, I hope you all know my name, but it's Dr. Ross. And we're going to be talking about probably the biggest topic that we talk about in the Maximized Living world. Remember, the Maximized Living world has 5 main categories that we concentrate on. Those being nutrition, exercise, detox, or getting the toxins out of your body, mental health, or dealing with stress and dealing with anxiety. And then the last one is the chiropractic component, which is keeping your nervous system healthy. In other words, you keep your biomechanics going well, and you actually keep your nervous system going well. But out of all those 5 topics, probably the biggest one, or the one with the most information, and actually the most misinformation, is nutrition. Because ultimately, people view food as a lot of different things nowadays. And it's not just fuel for your body. Like when you think of food, the first thing that comes to mind is that it's fuel. In other words, if you eat an apple, your body breaks down that apple into its molecular form, and then those molecules are made up into you. So those molecules become you. In other words, that apple is now a part of you. So most people don't look at food that way. They look at food in terms of enjoyment or satisfaction, or maybe it's a celebration or that kind of stuff. So we're going to talk about how that works. And then the second way that people are now viewing food, which is kind of how the modern medical system has made it, is food as medicine somehow, or food as a cure for disease, right? So herbs and different foods and different what they call superfoods. You've probably all been hit up by some of the various multi-level companies that say, hey, this new berry from a tropical place is the answer to all your problems, and if you just eat more of this berry, it'll heal you. Or if you eat more garlic, that's good, or if you eat more ginseng or whatever it is. And so we're going to dispel some of those things, that food is a component, and it's one of those 5 components that if you want good health, you have to eat the right way. And there's specific things. First is what you eat, and the second is the timing of what you eat, right? So we're going to talk about how that affects us, how that can give us energy, how that can give us vitality, and specifically how it can put us into a healing mode, what we call the healing diet. So in other words, we talk about how what you put in your body as fuel makes your body run better, right? Because we wouldn't question if you had a car and the car called for a certain type of fuel and you put in the wrong type of fuel and your car starts to perform poorly, you wouldn't question that. You would say, oh, well, I didn't put in the right fuel. But with the body, we say, oh, we can put it whenever we want and it should run fine. And then we're shocked. What do you mean I have diabetes and high cholesterol and all these other things? So we'll talk about what that means to each person, what foods you should be eating, and specifically I do it in 2 ways. One is what you should be eating, specific for you, but the second is how you should implement those things. Because who here has tried totally revitalizing your diet, changing from this to that all in one day, right? This is the principle of the South Beach diet and the Atkins diet, and if you've eaten carbohydrates your whole life, if you're like me and meat and potatoes was my stable diet, all of a sudden now, you take out all carbs. And now you're going to eat not the protein you're used to, you're going to eat a totally different type of protein. It's similar to taking your body and dropping it into Alaska and saying, hey, now you're in cold weather, deal with it. You want to try and acclimatize, get used to the cold gradually, let your body acclimatize that. Same with food. So we'll talk about that. When we talked about the purpose of eating, being that you want to fuel this God-given body. Because ultimately, God gave you this perfect system that if you fuel it correctly, you're going to get great function out of it. As long as those 4 other factors are in place. The chiropractic component, exercise, detoxing, and dealing with mental stress. But the second thing, there's also other levels to food. So food can't be a burden. You can't look at food like, oh my God, I got to eat more of this, broccoli, or whatever it is. If it becomes a burden on you, then mentally you're coming down, you're starting to hate eating that way. Does that make sense? So food has an emotional component. And it's important to realize that there's an emotional component there, so that if you're out at a picnic or a family thing, or you're out at a nice dinner or whatever it is, that's the time to say, okay, I'm going to eat this way, knowing that I'm going to make up for it next day. Right? So you got to allow yourself to enjoy the food, which is good for your mental side, it's good for your spirit, and it's ultimately good for your body on the inside. Knowing that, okay, that's my splurge, now I'm going to be better overall. I usually use the 85% rule, right? So 85% of the time you eat good, 15% you eat not so good. Whatever that means to you. pH is the acidity. Now this becomes huge with diet and with what you put in your body, and we talk about a book that I really like called Alkalize or Die. That's a great title, but it basically means that we want to eat food that is not acid forming in your body. Simply put, if you look at 98% of all disease, and I don't care if you're talking about cancer or heart disease or diabetes or infectious diseases or any diseases really, 98% is lifestyle. 98% is lifestyle. Only 2%, other than the genetic component that is, malformed at birth, but only 2% is genetically driven, which means that if your father had cancer and your mother had diabetes or something like that, don't buy into the whole process that, well, I'm just going to have cancer. That's just the way it is. The only way that you follow in those footsteps is if you follow the same lifestyle that they did. So if you change your lifestyle, you literally change your life. God didn't make you genetically weak. God didn't make your body weak at all or fragile. He made it strong as long as you put the right fuel in, as long as you exercise the right way, as long as it's running the right way. Does that make sense? So we talk about pH, and there's certain foods, even good foods, that are acid forming. Those are the ones that we want to limit in the body. And I can tell you right now that the two main things that are acid forming in your body are saturated fats and high fructose corn syrup.
What was the last one?
High fructose corn syrup. So we'll talk about man-made foods versus God-made foods, but in general, God made foods to be alkaline in quality, so they produce a higher pH or an alkaline environment in your body, which means you create less inflammation. Whereas acidic foods in your body release more hydrogen and create more inflammation. So a lot of diets, when you look at what people are eating, they're eating fast foods, deep fried foods, highly sugared foods, like high fructose type foods. Those kind of foods are very acid forming in the body, and they create a lot of inflammation, which leads to a lot of other diseases. For example, most people think heart disease, oh, you eat bad your whole life, you don't exercise, you get heart disease. Well, why? Because when you are eating a lot of acid forming foods, that hydrogen creates more inflammation in your body, and you tend to get inflammation on the walls of your arteries. So they kind of swell because of the additional acid that's there. And when they swell, they have little lips that catch the fat molecules as they're coming through. So that causes plaquing. But the plaquing didn't just come out from nowhere. The plaquing grabbed onto the swollen artery walls. That's how plaquing starts. Now, if you're not exercising as well, then the blood pressure is not as high, so the slower moving fats glob on even more. So really, heart disease is an inflammatory reaction. Most people don't think of it that way, but it's really an inflammatory reaction. Arthritis is another one. When cartilage becomes swollen in your body or has inflammation within it, it becomes a better target for cells to attack it and for other things to attack it. It becomes more swollen. And so when you take a lot of that stuff out of your diet, or in other words, you're having a higher pH diet, you're going to have less inflammation, which means less plaquing, which means less joint pain, which means less arthritis, which means less cancer, which means just about every disease known to man is related to that pH level. And it's not to say that diet is the end-all be-all, because it is not. Most people, if you look at what most people consider a health plan, they consider diet to be the biggest component, and it really isn't. It's one of 5. So you should look at diet as being one of 5 components. It's not the most important. In fact, if I was to guess, I would say the nervous system is far and away your most important. But you look at exercise as being, if you consider them all equal, mental health 20%, exercise 20%, detoxifying your body 20%, nutrition 20%, and then the nervous system 20%. So keep that in mind. So that's the role of inflammation. The role of blood sugar and insulin, this is a huge one in terms of fatigue and general energy. Because when you look at blood sugar, you're really looking at insulin levels. Because the blood sugar goes up, your insulin levels go up. Blood sugar goes down, insulin levels go down. That is how your body combats blood sugar. If your blood sugar is high inside your body, or specifically inside your blood flow, that creates a very acidic environment, because the blood has the sugar has a lot of hydrogens on it, and it also creates a lot of inflammation. But on top of that, that's how your body creates energy. So if you're here and then you're here and then you're here and then you're here, the insulin levels are that also up and down and up and down. And essentially over time you burn out your system. So all the cells are getting used to this. Wow, tons of insulin. Oh, no insulin. Wow, tons of insulin, low insulin. And that's how we eat, right? We eat a huge, if it's not necessarily how all of you eat, but the average American eats a huge breakfast, huge insulin rises, tons of sugar, tons of fat. And then they go down and they're starving by the time they're at lunch. Then they eat a huge lunch, tons of sugar, tons of fat. Then their insulin levels are up there. And then they starve themselves in the afternoon. Then a huge dinner. And then a huge snack right before bed. And then they go to bed. And they have this wild up and down cycle. And by the time they're in their 40s, they've already burnt their cells out of the insulin. And then they're having this chronic fatigue and chronic inflammation and chronic problems, which leads to chronic disease. Right? So when we look at the cycle of sugar, if here's normal and then you eat a huge meal and then it comes way down and then it comes back to normal and then you eat another huge meal and it comes like that, you're also going to have the same kind of insulin rise and fall in that. And if you look at, so here's the insulin, it lags a little bit, it's up the same way and it's down, it's up the same way and it's down, and so forth. So at this level, when you're up, now you're buzzing. You get this energy and it's almost uncomfortable energy. And then when you're at this level, you're at that, oh, I'm just so tired, I can't keep my eyes open. And this may happen several times through the day. What happens in the biggest rise and fall? That's Thanksgiving, right? So when you do this Thanksgiving, it's like, oh, this is the comatose state where you just, I'm so tired, my blood sugar's so low, and so forth. So the goal of eating would be to keep the insulin levels at a lower level so it never really rises and falls. How do we do that? We eat little meals throughout the day, little snacks throughout the day. And if you take one thing from this talk, go to Trader Joe's once a week, or I like Trader Joe's. It can be Whole Foods or it can be Safeway, or they all have good sections now with healthy snacks, and buy yourself nuts or beans or trail mix or dried fruit or vegetables or whatever it may be, whatever you fancy, and change it up each week and just have that available wherever you go. Pack it wherever you go. Put it in a knapsack. It doesn't necessarily have to be cold or chilled or anything it is. You can just have it, and then every time you're feeling like you want to eat something, you just eat on that. And what that does is that you're not starving by the time lunch comes. You're not starving by the time dinner comes. And you know what happens statistically? You eat a lot less. And you know, for example, who's ever gone to shop for groceries when they're really hungry? Yeah, what do you come out with?
A lot more.
Tons of food and tons of junk. Guaranteed. So never, ever go to the grocery store on an empty stomach. Eat before you go. Have a snack wherever you like. I like those dried bananas They're organic. They're like banana chips. Great source of sugar, great source of fiber, and it's all natural, so I'll eat a few of those. It sort of satiates my hunger, and then I'm not starving and not eating the crap. If you plan, and the second thing, so always carry snacks with you, and then plan your week and plan your day. If you plan, then you never find yourself going, oh man, I'm hungry. Oh, there's a concession stand. I wonder if they have any healthy food. Right? Who's gone to a baseball game or a football game or a basketball game and gone to the concession stand and found, wow, they've got organic banana chips here. Wow, oh yeah, I'll take some of those. You know, it doesn't happen. So when you fail to plan, you eat the crappy stuff, which is all the same, all the acidic foods we've mentioned. Most people don't have a problem with figuring out what's good food and what's bad food. I used to go over this whole thing with, okay, this is good, this is not good, this is bad. But most people know that deep fried foods, you know, fast foods, that kind of stuff, very sugary foods, tons of condiments on there, ketchups and all that kind of stuff. Those are highly sugar filled, highly fatty, saturated fatty, and they're not good for you. You know, you can eat them a little bit, especially if they're your vice, but they're not very good for you. Does anyone not agree with those? So good foods are the more raw, the more God-made, like organic and not man-tainted. Those are good foods, yeah? Like fruits and vegetables. Meat is good as long as it's the less man-tainted it is, or cooked or tainted in some other way with preservatives and with chemicals and all that stuff. The less tainted it is, the better it is for you in general. So you try and stick with that. Most people understand that, yeah, I'd like to eat that more. You know, even if it costs me a little more money, it's worth it to your body to put in the better fuel. So I don't really go over the things between those things. And if you want to, you know, prevent eating all this crap, then plan your day and just say, okay, this is what I'm going to eat. I'm going to have this ready to go. And if you plan your week, then you can say, okay, well, I'm going to have a number of things that I can have ready to prepare for each day. I'm going to eat this for lunch. I'm going to buy some sandwich meat. I'm going to buy some wheat bread and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to have that ready so that when I come home for lunch, or when I pack my lunch, I'm not, you know, leaving myself out without any food and having to buy fast food. Does that make sense? I don't want to focus on that, but that's basically the premise there, is if you plan, you're going to do a whole lot better than if you don't plan. God-made foods versus man-made foods. Now, we're going to concentrate a lot on that, but basically your best source of food and nourishment is what God has given us. So did God give us non-organic or genetically modified oranges that grow to the size of basketballs, that taste like absolute garbage, that have very little, you know, nutritional value, all that stuff? Did God make those for us? Heck no. So man has tainted those kind of things. But if you go to most grocery stores now, they have organic products, which is great. And if you look at it, now this science is starting to come around to this viewpoint, but if you look at it, when you look at an orange or an apple or any God-made food, steak or whatever it is, your body recognizes that innately and starts to prepare to eat that. So it's already creating the enzymes and the stomach acid and all the components to digest that fully. So when we eat it, it's not a shock to our system. Our system's already prepared for it. And it already innately knew how to do that. That's the incredible intelligence that goes on in your body. It's already got the whole components ready to digest just this. And then when you eat, let's say it's an orange, when you start to eat it, the fibers and the sugars and all the components that's in the vitamins and minerals that's in that orange are all perfect matches for our enzymes and for our stomach acid. And we churn that, and we basically can digest it 100%. So there's really none lost. That's how good our body is. That's how formed that food is for our bodies. I mean, it's really pretty incredible when you look at the science that's behind it. And so when our bodies eat it, it's not just nourishing our bodies, it's actually a workout for a whole system. Our enzymes in our mouth and in our glands there get used. Our muscles through our esophagus gets used. The muscles in the stomach gets used. The stomach acid gets used. The enzymes in our small intestines get used. The bacteria that are in our large intestines get used. All of those things are like the cogs on a wheel. And when we eat all those, when we're using that wheel, the wheel becomes more efficient over time. We become better at digesting, and better and better and better. When we eat artificial foods, like you'll see, oh, this has all the vitamins and minerals of an orange in this little pill. Well, you eat that pill, our bodies are not really sure what to do with that. It may have all the same components, but man has tainted that and doesn't have the same fibers and sugars and all the various things. So there's a lot of enzymes sitting around going, what are we supposed to do? We got no role. We didn't even know we were eating. We saw a pill. We didn't prepare for this pill. And what happens when you don't use a body part? Like if you didn't use your arm ever, it atrophies, right? So your body stops producing it. So when you stop, and there is an unbelievable amount of Americans that don't eat enough fruits and vegetables in our country. And when you don't eat enough fruits and vegetables, your body starts to atrophy. And then what happens when you start eating good foods and stuff, you produce more stomach acid than you need to, and because your body's not used to it. Just like if you had not used your arm for a long time and you start to work out, it's painful at first, you know. So the whole process is slow steps. If you're not eating very well right now, make slow steps towards God-made food, organic fruits and vegetables in their most raw state possible, as opposed to man-made foods. So examples of man-made foods is anything in a can has been tainted by man. And I don't, Wonder Bread and all these other white breads, I mean, have you ever seen white grains that are just pure white? They don't exist. They have to take those grains, you know, pound them all down into their basic component, and then they bleach them to get all the good fiber out of it. And then when they have their bleached product, then they add chemical vitamins and minerals in there. Anyone ever wonder why you can take Wonder Bread and put it on the counter and 3 weeks later it's just as soft and moist as it is, you know? Yeah, because man puts other chemicals in that not even fungus or bacteria or enzymes will eat, but we eat it, you know? I'm always amazed that people, you know, they slap someone's about to feed a dog with the people food, you know, and someone slaps their hand and says, oh, no, that's bad for the dog, but you can eat it. You know, it's amazing to me that we recognize that certain things are not only just bad for us, but they're poisonous to us, but we routinely put it in our body. Good foods like whole wheats are, if you put them on the counter, within 1 day, bacteria and fungus and enzymes will digest that because it's good for them too, and it'll become hard as a rock because they'll use up all the water in it. And so good foods like eating wheats and stuff like that is not only alkaline in your body or non-acidic, but it also is good for other things like bacteria and all that kind of stuff. So the last thing I want to touch on before we go on to this stuff is the role of calcium and magnesium. Calcium, most people know that calcium is good for what? Bones, right? That was nicely put forth by the Dairy Commission. And why did they put that forth? Because they wanted to sell more milk. That was the main thing. Milk is not particularly good for you, and we'll go over that. But even though milk in its true form is an alkaline product or an alkaline creating product, but in its homogenized and pasteurized and all the chemicalized version of it, man-made, man-tainted version, it becomes acidic and it becomes mucus forming. But the reality is that calcium is probably the most important ion you have in your entire body. It is the main ion in all the nerves. So for a nerve to shoot an electrical current through it, it needs calcium. It's also the #1 ion in your muscle. For a muscle to contract, calcium is the main ion that goes through there. Calcium is also the main ion in bone growth and bone formation. So it's actually the three big things: muscle, nerve, and bone. And calcium is the #1 thing in all those things. And what they found out that 82%, a Harvard study, 82% of us, which means 8 out of 10 of us in this room, are deficient in calcium. So there's 3 components to calcium. Calcium, magnesium, which is another ion which is used in getting calcium in and out of our cells. So you have to have enough magnesium. So if you're supplementing with calcium, supplement with magnesium. And then vitamin D is the 3rd component in that calcium cycle. Vitamin D is produced by your skin cells in exposed to sunlight. Now, who here thinks that they get enough sunlight? Maybe Sue. The reality is that even if you're in the sun for a long period of time, if you're covered up, if you've got a baseball cap on, if you've got sunscreen or whatever it is on, you're probably not getting enough sunlight. 30 minutes per day of direct sunlight is what they recommend to create enough vitamin D. However, toxins in your environment can stifle the vitamin D production, as well as toxins we put on our skin, which also can be acidic forming. So you kind of look at it and say, even the most outdoors person could help themselves by supplementing with vitamin D. So you can get that from milk, but I would prefer you not to drink milk, so unless it's the whole unpasteurized version, which is tough to get. And yeah, it's not that good tasting. Besides, it's kind of weird that humans decided at some point to drink the milk of another animal. Because if you think about it, that was God's perfect food for a calf. But we, latched onto the cow and said, hey, if it's perfect for them, it must be perfect for us. Well, it's not perfect for us. I mean, we wouldn't drink rat's milk, but we do drink cow's milk. It's, sort of a strange thing. But not to say that it's totally bad, but the way we've tainted it, it becomes bad. So calcium and magnesium. So let's talk about, I put on 4 things here that we want to change, because ultimately I can talk about a lot of different things that are part of nutrition, and literally the nutrition course is more like a week-long, 10 hours a day, learning all about this stuff. So I'm going to give you 4 main things that we want to focus on so that we can make changes in our diet and make improvements in ourselves. So the first one is adding God-made foods. When you're starting any program, do not take away anything. That's the #1 mistake that I see people, especially people trying to lose weight. They start going, well, I'm gonna stop eating this, I'm gonna stop eating that, I'm gonna stop doing that, I'm gonna stop doing that, and then I'm also gonna add all these things. And really, it's like taking your body and throwing it into Alaska. It's a shock to your system. So the first step for the first week or so is just add good food. Eat the same as you were, but go to Trader Joe's or go to Safeway or go to Raley's or go to Whole Foods and buy yourself snacks so that you are always with a good, healthy snack. By the way, don't buy peanuts. Peanuts are not a particularly good, healthy snack. Very hard for your body to digest. Quite tainted in a lot of ways. A lot of times they're roasted. A lot of times oil is added, and it actually becomes hard for your body to digest other things when you eat peanuts. If you're going to have nuts, there's tons of other good. Cashews are great. Almonds are great. There's a lot of different beans that you can get, like soybeans and stuff like that. Try and buy organic if you can. Try and buy lightly salted, if at all salted. So, but beans, nuts, dried fruits, vegetables, raw vegetables are great. Buy yourself some snacks and start to add that stuff and eat it on a regular basis. Like eat like a little bit at a time, and you'll see yourself eating less of the crappy foods that you used to eat. The second step then would be to start reducing the stuff. I know when a long time ago I said, okay, enough fast food. I'm not going to eat any fast food. No McDonald's, no Burger King, no Taco Bell, none of that stuff. And for the first few weeks, I was like, wow, I'm just craving that stuff so much. But then you get to a point where you kind of go, wow, that stuff doesn't sound good to me. I'd rather have good food that fuels my body as opposed to that crappy food. And when I do eat it, because I have kids and sometimes we do eat it, I can't explain how bad I feel. I mean, it is like sludge in your system. So recognize some of the bad things that you eat, some of the sweets or some of the fatty foods or whatever it is, and slowly, maybe not eliminate them, but slowly reduce them over time. The first thing is add good foods, man-made foods. By the way, who thinks butter is bad? Butter is actually great for you. Yeah, so there's a big difference between saturated fats and non-saturated fats. Butter, in its true form, is non-saturated. So it actually, anything that is a liquid at room temperature is not that bad. That's non-saturated. What happens when you take butter and you put it in the pan and you fry something up and then you let the pan cool? What happens to the oil that was in there? It becomes a solid, right? When it's solid at room temperature, that means that it's hydrogenated, and that's the bad kind of fat. So butter in itself, if you put butter on a sandwich or butter on whatever it is, as long as it's not heated up and hydrogenated, it's actually very good for you, as is most true oils or fats. So olive oils, great for you. In fact, who's here's heard of omega oils? Yeah, so just about everyone. Omega oils are what we call essential fatty acids. They're non-hydrogenated oils. They can be found in most nuts and beans and fish and other sources, some fruits or some vegetables like avocados. Those things contain good fats, which are absolutely essential. If you want to lose weight, you have to increase your good fats. There's no other way. You have to increase your good fats. You decrease the bad kind of carbohydrates, which is any carbohydrate that like pasta or sugars or stuff like that. You have to eliminate those or reduce those. But also there's a lot of carbs found in fruits. And so if you're going to eat that kind of stuff, you have to reduce that stuff, especially, and we'll talk about timing, especially late at night. But increasing the good fats, add fat to your diet. Not hydrogenated fat, but other types of fat. If you're not supplementing, and we'll talk about supplementation, but if you're not supplementing with omega oils, start doing it now. Omega oils are the essential oils, are like lubrication for your joints. They clean out your arteries. They help with acidity. They're actually very good alkaline products. So they actually bring your levels up, which decreases arthritis and decreases inflammation, all that kind of stuff. Raw is best. I put raw is best, steamed is good, fried is not so good, and deep fried is bad. Anyone disagree with that? So, in other words, the more you cook something, the less value it generally has. That's why, like, the omega oils we have here are all cold filtered. They used to be commonplace to heat it up, where it was more runny, you know, like a liquid, and it was easier to work with. And then when it would cool down, they'd put it in a capsule and all that kind of stuff. And to me, it's just unbelievable that and a lot of these companies that we're doing were pharmaceutical companies that were getting into the vitamin business, but they would actually taint your vitamins, make them little, you know, hydrogenated forms of oil, and then sell it to you, and people would eat it. I mean, unbelievable. So if you can do it, like for example, if you have a steak or something like that, whatever you like to eat, whether it be a fish steak or pork or beef or chicken or whatever it is, you have that portion of your meal that is obviously cooked, supplement with either steamed vegetables or raw vegetables. And, you know, put some butter on there if you like that. You can use salt. Salt is not the enemy. Salt is good because there's sodium and potassium and also chloride. So you can use that and flavor it, eat it, you know, make a good meal out of it, as opposed to deep frying the veggies and, you know, putting white flour on them and doing all the kind of things that they do at the state fair, which just drive me nuts. The colors of your fruits and vegetables, the brighter the better. What I always say is try in a week, try and get all the colors in your diet. The yellows, the greens, the blues, the reds, all those kind of things. If there's parts of that you don't like vegetables, like you don't like tomatoes or something, good, eliminate tomatoes. But try and get all the colors in there because they all have different qualities. They all have different parts and components to them. The more raw, the better. So adding little bits to that. If you don't have a lot of vegetables in your diet or fruits or whatever it is, just start to implement at this point. Don't worry about timing so much initially. We'll talk about timing for a little bit later, but just implement a little bit at a time. So supplementing in your diet, we talked about adding essential oils, the omega oils 3, 6, and 9. 3, 6, and 9 have been shown to have a good balance. So there's 3 components of 3. So there's 3 types of omega oils. One is the fish oil. The other 2 come from other foods like beans and nuts. There's 2 types of omega 6. There's 1 type of omega 9. So you want a good balance, and it's generally 3, 2, and 1 components to your thing. So finding a good balance of 3, 6, and 9 can be found in most supplements now. Certainly it's the kind that I have. So a good balance of 3, 6, and 9 is best. If you increase too much on the 6 or too much on the 9 and less on the 3, it can actually have negative qualities. It can actually be acid forming. So you want to try and balance that. Add calcium, magnesium, and vitamin D. We already talked about that. You know, really easy to do. The one component that I always tell people is that calcium is an acidic loving ion. So you do not eat that with food. You eat that alone. Because if you eat it with food, and this makes me cringe when I hear about this, but Tums, you know, Tums, the antacid, they came out with a very unique selling proposition. They said, hey, we could make because it's basically an OH ion, right? A hydroxide ion that kills the stomach acid. But they said we could combine that OH ion with just about any other component, you know, whatever it is. Why don't we do it with calcium? Everyone knows because of the Dairy Commission that you need calcium. So they said, hey, now with calcium. And literally millions of Americans were getting their calcium from eating Tums. They didn't even have heartburn, but they were eating this Tums and stuff. The problem is that Tums does what to your stomach acid? Neutralizes it. So you can't digest calcium with a neutral environment in your stomach. So the calcium was going straight through, and it was negatively affecting the bacteria in their gut. And they were advertising this. Hey, now with calcium. And people were saying, I have heartburn, but now I don't have a calcium problem because I got these Tums. And people were buying into this and supplementing with Tums. The government found out once people started making enough noise and stopped them from advertising, still with calcium. Still says with calcium on the side, but they can't advertise it because they know you don't get any calcium from Tums. But acidic environment is essential with calcium. So eating it right before you go to bed is probably the best way because magnesium is a slight sedative to your system. So if you take your calcium and magnesium, take it right before bed, beautiful. You can take vitamin D anytime. A daily multivitamin is an essential thing. The government did a study about 7 years ago and showed that 99% of the population is deficient in at least one thing in your diet. 99%, which means all of you in here are deficient in at least something in your diet. So supplementing is essential. And it doesn't mean replacing. And please do not go out and buy Centrum. Centrum vitamins, 1 a day, manly vitamins, womanly vitamins, kidly vitamins, you know, man with 1 leg vitamins. Women, they have vitamins for everything, Centrum. Centrum's made by a pharmaceutical company, and literally what they do is they take all the pharmaceutically made vitamins and they fit them together in such tight fashion, and then they coat it with the easy to swallow capsule. So the pills are really small, they're really easy to swallow, but you know, your body can't unlock them. So they go straight through. And if you ever saw the porta potties that they, you know, who's heard me tell this story? Anyone? It's a terrible story, but it has a funny ending. I had a friend in chiropractic school, and he got a job with one of these rental companies, and one of the things they rented was these porta potties for the fairs and so forth. And one of his jobs was to go get the porta potties, bring them back to their factory, dump them in this big thing, and then he would use this high-powered hose and he would spray it down through this little filter, and so if anyone threw stuff in there, it wouldn't go down, you know, the drain. And he said when he was done, there was literally handfuls of vitamins, and in some cases he could actually read the Centrum labels right on the vitamins. So my joke to him was always like, man, you're so lucky you never have to buy vitamins again. So good, healthy multivitamins come in either a liquid form or come in these big horse pills that are hard to swallow because they have a lot of surface area and your body can digest them. I usually recommend a multivitamin. Actually, what I do, I don't even take a multivitamin now. I take the protein and it's the fruits and vegetables version, which is basically like a multivitamin. So that I supplement one meal with that system. So that takes care of a lot of those things. If you're going to do that, make sure it's a good quality and don't feel like you need to get 100% of B12 and 100% of C and 100% of D and 100 because you're eating hopefully good. So you want to supplement. So a lot of times on those labels when it says take 4 of these a day, just take 1. You just need to supplement, not replace. Centrum has a 200% of this, has 500% of that, and, you know, and if your body can, you know, digest it, where is all that excess going to go? It's going to go through your kidneys or through your liver or through your bile duct. You know, people wonder why they have so many bile problems and kidney stones and bile stones and stuff like that. It's because your body's on overload trying to get rid of this crap that's in your system, like hydrogenated soy oil. That's the thing they put in the Wonder Breads and just about everything has hydrogenated soy oil or hydrogenated soy lecithin, which is the protein matrix. When they take soybeans and they start breaking them down, they take the components out that are useful to humankind, they're left with 2 byproducts, hydrogenated soy oil and soy lecithin. That's the protein matrix that was left over and the oil that was left over. And they put these 2 things, which are literally indigestible, and they put them in just about every food you look at, every man-made food.
Fillers.
They're fillers, and they increase the protein count, which everyone likes protein in their stuff, and they make it so that these things stay fresh forever, like Wonder Bread. That's why, because no other creature on the planet wants to eat hydrogenated soy oil. It's literally garbage for your system. That's why everyone has gallstones now, because that hydrogenated soy oil can't be get rid of in your system, and it ends up in your bile duct, and your bile then starts creating stones out of this stuff. So a good multivitamin is essential. Glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM, there's a few other things, SAMe. All these things are good for your joints. They are the building blocks of your joints. They are not going to heal your joints. They are not going to, you know, replace your joints. But when you have joint issues, especially cartilage or joint issues, these kind of things have been proven to help. But you've got to take them in certain doses. 500 milligrams is generally the minimum that you want to take per day. So a lot of these products that are out there in the health food stores, they say stuff like, great for joint health, great for this and that. And then you look at them and they have 50 milligrams of glucosamine. And they're really just vitamin pills. Like we've got vitamin B and we've got vitamin C and we've got vitamin. Those things are useless. If you're going to take a multivitamin, take a multivitamin. Don't have herbs and all the other stuff in your multivitamin. Just take it as a multivitamin. If you want glucosamine and chondroitin and MSM and the various things, I can help you with that. And we've got some stuff here that I can get for a lot cheaper than you buy in the other stores. So. Protein deficiency, this is one of the big things that I recommend people supplement in their diet, because if you look at your weight and you take that and you divide it in 2, that's how many grams of protein you should be getting. So if you were 150 pounds, you divide that in 2, that's 75. So that's how many grams of protein you should be getting in your diet per day, 75 grams of protein. And that's the minimum. Most people, it's a lot. Most people don't get anywhere near that. So getting good, high-quality protein is so vital. Protein is one of these awesome miracle products in your body because it can be used in any way. It can be used to make sugar. It can be used to obviously build muscle and build cartilage and build your tissues. It can be converted into fat and stored. It can be used in buffering pH. It can literally be used in so many ways. It's like the miracle molecule. None of the other molecules have that flexibility in terms of it. So one of the easiest ways is find yourself a good protein supplement. We have some here. You can buy them just about in any store. Trader Joe's has a good canned version. I don't like the canned version so much because you leach aluminum from the can. So you're getting a lot of aluminum that way. But protein powders that you mix with water, all that kind of stuff, you do it once a day and you're going to up your protein count to the levels that you want to have. That also will allow your body to build up at night, whereas a lot of times you're breaking your body down throughout the day. It's kind of like this cycle. You're breaking your body down throughout the day. So you start here at the beginning of the day, you wake up and your body is slowly broken down throughout the day, and then you go to sleep and your body builds back up. And hopefully you get it back to the same level so that you start each day fresh. When you don't get enough protein in your diet, what happens is you break down throughout the day, and then when you're building back up, you can only build so high because there's only that much protein. So it does one of two things. If you are in a downward cycle, meaning that, let me just show you on, I'm going to minimize this, but you break down, then you build back, then you break down, you build back, break down, build back, break down, build up. See, the cycle is going downwards. If you're in a downward cycle, your body will lynch protein from your muscles. You'll actually start to weaken your body. It'll lynch the protein from your muscles or from your joints or from your tissues or from your cartilage. And then you'll actually start to build back up based on that. But your overall body will be breaking down. You'll actually see your muscles getting smaller and so forth. Question?
Yeah. Of the protein, should you take it at night then?
I don't recommend you take it at night. I recommend you take it in stages throughout the day. So it's not bad to take it at night. We'll talk about timing, but it's like a really good protein supplement can be taken in the middle of the day. But anyway, you can take it at night. It's not. I just recommend the one thing that you don't want to take at night is carbs or high sugar or fruits, that kind of stuff, because that stuff is going to be converted to fat at night, guaranteed.
What about like grapes at night?
Grapes are fruit, high sugar.
Yeah.
And that would
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
vegetables are good. Vegetables have lower amounts of sugar, more fiber. It's better for you. Protein is okay. Even fat is okay if you eat like the omega oils or a non-saturated fat. But you want to avoid the sugars right at night because your body's going to convert that to fat, guaranteed. But if you're having enough, if you're not in a downward spiral, then what your body's going to do is if it's getting enough protein, it's going to get right up to the top, right up to the top, right up to the top. By the way, this downward cycle has been shown to affect the immune system just about more than any other system. So your immune system will suffer when you're in a downward spiral in terms of protein.
What
So
form of protein?
there's a lot of different forms. Generally, you get it from eggs or from some sort of egg type of product. So like, for example, the stuff that we have is from that source, but it's also it's got very low cholesterol in it, but very low sugar in it. Has a very natural type of sweetener called stevia, which has been shown to help oxygen uptake in your system and so forth. So obviously you can find protein in a lot of different ways. Protein can come in different. You can get it from bovine and some other sources, but egg is generally accepted as the best source, unless you're allergic to eggs or allergic to dairy. It can be a lot of it is taken from milk as well. The protein's taken out of milk. That's a good source too.
Dr. Ross?
Yeah.
Egg being a good source of protein, and then combined with trying to get half of your body weight in grams.
Mm-hmm.
How much protein would a couple of eggs in the morning give you?
Depends on the size of the egg, but generally, if you're eating a big egg, then it's a little bit more. But generally, 2 eggs, I'm going to guess, is about 15 grams of protein. So,
For a stretch.
What's that?
I mean, it's a lot of servings of egg to make the number that.
Oh yeah, if you're just going to eat eggs, I mean, you want to eat. Protein is found in a lot of vegetables as well, in a low amount. Of course, protein is found in all meats, chicken and fish and all those kind of things. So animal products are going to have protein in it. So I'm not suggesting that you try and revamp all your protein with the supplement. That's not a good thing. You have to eat real God-made food if you want to use the system that you have. But most people, myself included, do not get enough protein in their diet. So supplementing, like one serving of that protein is 20 grams of protein. Those cans, you can get up to 42 grams in one can of 42 grams of high quality protein. So to get up to your levels, really not that difficult if you supplement. If you're really having trouble, like for example, my wife, when I met her, was a vegetarian. So she had to eat a lot of tofu, a lot of beans, a lot of nuts, a lot of legumes, a lot of stuff to try and get her protein. But she had to supplement because there's just no way to get enough protein that way. For me, I was more of a carnivore. Protein, no problem. I don't like carbs myself. That's just, I don't do well. Carbs make me tired, I find. So I'll eat carbs before I exercise, but I don't eat them. I don't eat carbs with my meals. I don't like French fries. I don't like potatoes. I don't like starchy vegetables. So I just eat the colorful leafy vegetables, which are the best for you anyway. So if you're, by the way, starchy vegetables are not bad for you. They are actually alkaline in quality, but you should eat them with the skin. So the skin actually has a lot of the good component of if you're a potato eater or if it's like pumpkin or squash or any of those kind of things, eat them with the skin. It's better for you. So protein deficiency, really easy to get that. So eliminating man-made foods is kind of the third step. When you evaluate your own diet, look at the most man-made stuff, the most tainted stuff. For me, for a long time, I was eating a lot of these power bars and tiger bars and different health, what I considered health bars, And when I started to read the labels, I realized this stuff is tainted more than most everything. Yeah, it had high protein and it had this and that and lots of vitamins and minerals and so forth, all chemically produced and put in there. The high protein was from soy lecithin, stuff you can't use, and it's a sludge for your system. A lot of the stuff was maintained with hydrogenated soy oil. So you kind of look at it and you go, a lot of that stuff's not good for you. It's better to eat real food. And if you're going to supplement with stuff, supplement with real food. So reducing that stuff is important, but do not take it out if it's your vice. Or, for example, if you really love, I don't know, hamburgers or something like that, then reward yourself by being good. Have a hamburger once in a while. Moderation, everyone knows moderation is the key. If you love red wine or if you love beer or you love Coca-Cola or whatever it is, moderate, little bit. It's not going to be a problem. If, for example, if you eat 85% good alkaline foods, 15% bad acidic foods, no problem at all. Your body's going to be totally fine. And bear in mind that you are acclimatized to where you are right now. So if you start taking steps away from that, your body's going to be, yeah, this is cool, I can take care of this. Whereas if you jump right into something and say, none of that, I'm only eating this, you're going to hate life. That's why most people fail on their dietary programs. So add some good food first and add planning first. So just start planning your dietary programs and then start reducing. Put in those supplements that we talked about if you're not doing so already, and then start taking away the man-made foods. We talked about milk. Milk is not something that I like, and talk about saturated fat. So deep fried stuff, although it tastes good, try and reduce that as much as humanly possible. Timing of eating is the last thing. So when you start doing all these things, then you can start looking at the timing of it. And we've talked a lot about when to eat them. So eat small meals instead of large ones. Snack throughout the day. Avoid carbohydrates before you sleep. We talked about that one. Increase protein and decrease saturated fats at meals to avoid the slump. So when you are looking at this rise in blood sugar and so forth, so obviously sugar causes a big increase in insulin, but so does saturated fat. So when you eat saturated fat, it just doesn't rise quite as quickly. So saturated fat might take it up like this, but then you're still going to reach that high level, which is why when you eat really fatty, saturated fatty foods, you get that slump where you're like, oh, I'm so tired, you know, that kind of stuff. So if you want to avoid that, avoid the saturated fats in your diet. Interestingly, because it was thought for a long time that fats is what does it. Fats, period. Non-saturated fats don't do it. So when you eat like, you know, good types of oils, whether it be, you know, omega oils or like fish oils or oils from avocado or vegetables or any other source, nuts, legumes, stuff like that that has oils, whatever it may be, it doesn't create that big slump. In fact,
Avocado, is this non-fattening?
Yeah,
oh, it has a lot of fat in it.
yes,
Oh,
but
okay, I
it's,
thought
it's
it
good
was-
for you.
Yeah, but it's a good fat, and it doesn't create that big slump. So, and the other thing that won't create that slump is eating a lot of protein. So, for example, if you go out and actually eating a lot of like good vegetables or that kind of stuff won't create that slump either. So, if you go out for lunch, one easy thing to do is instead of eating that hamburger or that deep fried version or whatever it is, eat a salad or just eat protein, like and just have a chicken breast, and that's it, and that'll be huge. Or chicken breast with vegetables.
I roast a lot of vegetables. Does that hurt? You say more cooking is bad
Right.
because it brings out the sugar and the sweetening in it. But there's a lot of steamed vegetables I don't like, but I'll eat them roasted.
Yeah, so roasted, if you look at it in the spectrum, raw is best, steamed is second best, roasting would probably be a third best.
Okay.
You know, especially if you're roasting it in something like that, and you're not letting all the good stuff drain away.
Right.
But you are, you know, you are breaking down the fiber and all that kind of stuff. It's not as fibrous or as beneficial to your body,
Okay.
but it's still better than, you know, deep frying it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even fried, yeah. So if exercising, eat carbs, and we call it carbo loading. Eat carbs before to give you the sugar. So eat fruits, eat any sort of like pasta or that kind of stuff. You like that, eat that before you exercise. And then afterwards you eat protein. So why? Because your body's starting to build. Even if you're not asleep, you're starting to build. It wants the protein afterwards. Your body needs the energy, so you put in the energy first. So high energy foods before you exercise, and then protein after you exercise. That's the best way to do it. You'll find the best results of that. Plan your week on Sunday. So what my wife and I do is that on Sunday afternoon, we sit down, we kind of go, okay, map out what we're going to eat, what the kids are going to eat, how we're going to do that kind of stuff. If we're out, we know, okay, we're going out to eat on that day and we're doing that kind of stuff. It takes us literally 10 minutes. We just sort of map out what we're going to do. And then my wife takes that and then she does the shopping while I watch the kids, and she goes and does the shopping. And she just picks up all the stuff that we need. Every week we do that on Sunday afternoon. And then, you know, we have everything planned. And on Sunday night, she cooks most of it. So we just do the cooking, and we cook the pasta, and we cook whatever it is, and then we just put it in Tupperware tins and put it in the fridge so that it's ready to go. I mean, we are the true, you know, busy family. None of us has time to cook and all that kind of stuff. But when you can buy organic vegetables that come in a bag, and you put the bag in the microwave and just turn on and it steams the vegetables for you.
Squash, that's really good.
Really good, yeah. Not quite as good as raw. Probably not as good as buying the vegetables fresh and doing it yourself, but still really good. So planning on that, and then plan each day in the morning. That is something that we've already kind of worked out of because we plan well on Sunday. But you kind of look at your plan and you go, okay, well, what am I going to eat for lunch today? Oh yeah, I've got the sandwich in there, and I've got this. Or oh, you know what, I'm gonna this is my day that I'm going to buy something. So let's see, where am I going to eat? Well, I'm going to eat at that new organic place, or I'm going to eat there, or you know what, I'm going to go to McDonald's, but I'm going to buy a salad at McDonald's, or whatever it may be. So planning will take care of a lot of your problems. Slow down when you eat. This is one big one if you're trying to lose weight. Slowing down when you eat is huge. Who here grew up in a family where they told you to gobble down your food so that you don't give it to your siblings, That's a common thing in America. And that's like, people just I take forever to eat now because I've trained myself, but people around me, they're eating, and then they're ordering dessert, and I'm still on just picking away at my food. If you eat slowly, your body adapts, it digests better, your body uses up the things, the components, and you are more full, so you're less likely to want dessert and so forth. And your body doesn't go through that huge surge. It's blood sugar goes up gradually as opposed to, you know, here and there. So eat slowly. If you want, put your fork down between each bite. Don't shovel, you know. And if you want to really get good at this, eat one thing at a time. So if it's a piece of steak, eat the steak. Chew it, eat it. Then it's a vegetable. Then it's whatever, a potato, or then it's, you know, whatever you're eating. So what people tend to do is they take the steak and they pile this on, then they pile that on, they pack as much as they can on their fork, they spread their mouth wide and they shovel it down. And, you know, it's harder on your body to digest all that stuff at once. I mean, it makes sense, right? But this is what we do. So slow down when you eat and eat one type of food at a time. So just to kind of conclude everything, you know, obviously this is a humongous topic. So I've tried to pick some of the things that are going to be most helpful to you all. The vision here is that if we all just ate a little bit better at a time, we would see huge impacts. You know, we'd feed our bodies better, our bodies would heal better, our minds would be more full, our bodies would be able to do more physical things, we'd be less likely to get injured if we fall or we have some mishaps, we'd have all sorts of beneficial things to our bodies. So, and if you kind of add that into the disease component, like how many diseases could be prevented if we eat even a little bit better, if we exercise a little bit better, if we handle stress a little bit better, if our nervous system is working a little bit better, or if we have a little less toxins in our system. You know, my big thing is right now we got the government saying, hey, we want to put this more health care to each person. You know, we want to offer it to everybody. And I'm looking at this going, oh my God, this healthcare system has been proven to be a failure. It does not make people well. It makes people sick. How many people are on drugs? How many people are dying? How many people are literally going down the toilet bowl of health because of that system? And you want to give that system to everybody, like as if it's a good freedom or a good right? I'm like, my God, if you want to take that money, make organic foods cheaper, or educate the populace about, you know, taking care of their nervous system or detoxing their system or whatever it is. Problem is that being healthy is less profitable, right? So, you know, one of the things that I look at it and my mission as a chiropractor, but also as a holistic physician, and also as someone in our community, is trying to get this information out so that people can start to implement this stuff. The information is there. If you look on the internet, there's websites galore about this stuff. But how many people are actually doing it? So if you need help doing it, or if you have questions, I'm there for you. We'll try and make things work for you. Because ultimately, we're all different, right? Our systems are different on the inside, just like we all look different on the outside. But you know, can we make a difference one person at a time? Absolutely. And I always tell people you eat for 3. You know, like if a woman's pregnant, she eats for 2. We all eat for 3. The first person that we eat for is God. Because God gave us this body, this temple. We've got to do the best thing for this gift that we've got. Second thing is you eat for your family or your loved ones. Because if you're eating for them and you're doing the best for them and you're exercising and you're keeping your nervous system and you're detoxifying and you're handling stress well, you're there for them. You're not becoming a burden on them with Alzheimer's or arthritis or all the chronic diseases that are completely preventable, 98% preventable. So you're eating for them. And the third one you're doing is eating for you, so that you can be the most you can be, you can enjoy life, you can enjoy this experience that you have. So if you keep that in mind, those 3 things, I think will make a big difference. Question?
It's kind of a little bit off topic, but what do you think about food allergies in general?
Good question, and that's a huge component that comes up in my other workshop about kids. But I personally believe that there is no such thing as a food allergy genetically. So it does not exist. God does not make us allergic to the food that he created for our bodies. So what happens is when man injects all this crap in terms of vaccinations and drugs and other interventions that he feels is helpful, all of a sudden our bodies, these little newborns, are exposed to all these chemicals, mercury and aluminum and ethylene glycol and formaldehyde and all these kind of chemicals, and the body is freaked out and it starts to develop antibodies that are really non-specific for any disease. By the way, God made our body with these bacteria and viruses around, knowing that we would be exposed. So the components were there also for those things. So those things don't kill us unless we're weak to begin with. In the way that it should work is those things come into contact with our bodies naturally produce antibodies, and then those antibodies are specific for those things, not, you know, hitting ourselves in other ways. So my thing is, because these are unnatural antibodies that were created with all these chemicals and bombardment of all those things, that creates allergies and creates autoimmune diseases. And those autoimmune diseases are really what creates a lot of these other diseases that are so prevalent in kids, whether it be cancer or autism or ADD or neurologic deficit disorders or all those kind of things. So in my personal opinion, and I always make that clear because some of the doctors I know have gotten in trouble for saying that it's the global opinion. Obviously, if you ask a butcher if meat is good, what is he going to say? So if you ask a pediatrician if vaccinations are good, what is he going to say? Yeah, of course. Oh, it's totally safe. BS, in my opinion. That's where food allergies come from. And obviously there's other chemicals in food. So you take in this food that's laced with pesticides and herbicides and other sides and all the various components. That has an effect on our body too. It's very unnatural. That can create other things, autoimmune problems, as well as allergies. So good question though. Huge topic. I could go over that for days and days. So God bless you all. Thank you for coming. If you have any questions at all, please let me know. I'd be happy to do a consult with you. If you have certain goals in mind, you want to lose weight or you want to have better health or whatever it may be, I can definitely help you and sit down with you and do that. I do that at no charge. And if you know anyone else who's struggling, especially, you know, with their health in terms of chronic disease and all that kind of stuff, let them know about me. Get them in the clinic. I'll check them, no problem. There is a patient appreciation day, by the way, or patient referral day is what we call it, next Wednesday. And anyone you know can come in on that day, only that day, and get their exam and x-rays for free. So next Wednesday, if you have anyone that you know needs to be here, and we probably know a lot of people, all of us, get them there, and we'll do that at no charge. Cool. Thanks for being here.